Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to our episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for today comes from Macy J, and it is, do you think the deployable shield should get an upgrade by allowing them to cover a small door, or extend them to cover a large double door? Well, I will agree with you that something needs to be done about this gadget. Right now, if you have the option between a deployable shield and basically every other gadget in the game, you're gonna pick those other gadgets. Barbed wire and the impact nades are just a better option for basically every single map and every single objective. And so the reason why I like your idea so much is that not only would this just give defenders more flexibility, they can choose between the smaller shield or the much larger one depending on their tactics, but it also would finally be the gadget I think everyone envisioned that it would be when they first laid their eyes on it, and that is something that actually provides a moderate amount of cover. This could honestly make certain objectives a bit more viable to defend as well. The top floor of Clubhouse is a prime example. If you have two teammates plopping these things down, it's going to give you a little bit of a fortress to work with. Now, it's not insurmountable. Offense has a lot of tools to deal with this gadget. Nades would be super effective. Ash's breaching charge, of course, would work, but it would actually give defense, especially on these certain rooms and certain maps that doesn't have a lot of cover, at least a fighting chance. Now, the only things I can think of for why Ubisoft may not want to add something like this is that, first of all, they'd have to program it, and right now, you guys know that can already be pretty difficult to place down one of these smaller shields. How much of a nightmare would it be to place down a larger version on some of these maps? There's a lot of things on the ground to stop that, but also, this would be really powerful. Maybe I'm overestimating things, but if I saw one of these extended shields in a hallway and I had to push said hallway to get anywhere near the objective, that's gonna be terrifying. And so let me know what you guys think about this concept. Do you think that he's onto something and that this would be a great way to improve the viability of the deployable shield? Do you think that this is pushing things too far and this is not a direction that you want to take for this gadget? Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. The next question comes from Jared, and it is, so I don't know if this happens up in Plat and Diamond, but in Silver/Gold, I always have people leaving the match. My idea is an operator who is unusable until someone leaves the game, and his ability is an extra reinforcement. I know I have lost a lot of games due to not being able to reinforce the proper wall on the objective. Now that is a really creative idea, and I can totally sympathize with you. When it turns into a 4v5, to lose a round simply because you didn't have enough reinforcements, or at least if that was one of the reasons why you lost, can be pretty annoying. To have this separate operator that only unlocks when it turns into a 4v5 gives you some flexibility. The one concern I have with this idea, though, is what else is this guy gonna bring to the table gadget-wise and even weapon-wise? Is he only gonna be able to use 4 wall reinforcements? Is that his specialty? Because if that's the case, while on some objectives that might be worthwhile to make up for your lost teammates, I think a lot of people would argue that that isn't enough. You'd rather bring in a Jaeger or a Bandit. Their gadgets just do more. And while yes, you're down 1 or 2 wall reinforcements, like their gadgets are gonna more than make up for it. And so what would his other gadget be if he has another gadget? Another thing we have to consider are what would his weapons be? Are they amazing to make up for the lost teammate, or are they mediocre? If they're amazing because Ubisoft wants to give defense or offense that little bit more of an edge so that they can win that 4v5, that has all of its own problems. The concern I have is that if this weapon is amazing to make up for that lost player, what if we have like an Ella 2.0 on our hands? Ella, but even better. Hey, it's okay. Like, it's still a 4v5. I don't know if that's a direction that I want to take for Rainbow Six Siege. One of the things I've always loved about this game is that while 4v5s are pretty tough to overcome, it's still possible. Like, if you're good enough and you've got the accuracy, you can still win simply because of the dynamic of this game. That would change things dramatically. And then finally, this would probably result in a lot more toxicity and griefing, which is already a pretty big issue. If someone on your team is having a rough game, let's say they only have like 1 or 2 assists, you're on the 5th round, they're clearly struggling, you might have your teammates just trolling them and being, toxic the entire time to get them to leave. You need to leave. We want to win. Leave so that we get this overpowered operator, or this operator that has this amazing arsenal so that we can have the advantage. You know it would happen. Like, I can almost guarantee that would happen if there was this kind of dynamic. And so while I really like what you're trying to accomplish with this idea, maybe a better way of going about it would to be add in a squad leader system, where someone is randomly chosen as the squad leader, and if someone leaves, that squad leader can choose any defending operator. Nothing changes there, but when they spawn in for that one round, they have maybe 1 or 2 extra reinforcements. That way, we don't have this crazy power dynamic shift by adding in a brand new operator that shifts things up too dramatically, but it does give defense at least that little bit more protection, and they're not at that severe disadvantage. Now, this system isn't perfect as well. You might run into arguments like, hey, I'm the squad leader, listen to me. What do you do for the offensive team to give them a slight advantage when they lose a player? Like, it has some of the same problems that we just talked about, but I feel like they're nowhere near as bad as they would be by adding in an operator that only unlocks when you are down a player. But of course, that is just my 2 cents. The next question comes from Ben, and it is, what do you think about being able to buy new announcer voices in Rainbow Six Siege, like the guy that says Op4 eliminated? Honestly, I really like that idea. Right now, I consider Rainbow Six Siege to be one of the better games out there with their DLC policy. It's not perfect, especially if you're a newer player. Things are getting a bit daunting, and I'm kind of hoping that Ubisoft makes some changes, especially to the price of those Year 1 operators. But by and large, if you compare it to a lot of other multiplayer games out there, it's a very fair policy. If you want to play this game 100% free after you make that initial purchase, you can do so. It's going to require a lot of grinding, but at least you have that option. And so the reason why I love this idea is that it extends that business model, especially if they're going to reduce the price of the Year 1 operators, and I really hope that they do. If they're afraid that that's going to lose them money, well, just kind of monetize in different aspects. Maybe not bring in more skins, but have different voice actors come on in to act as that announcer. If I remember right, this is the way that it works in Dota 2. You can have the stock announcer, you can have something a bit more serious, or you can go the silly route, and I think they had something like Rick and Morty if you wanted to do so. If I was able to have the Unreal Tournament announcer calling out double, triple, multi-kills, or when my team gets an ace or something like that, to add a bit more flair, I would buy that in a heartbeat. Now, of course, this isn't going to be to everyone's liking, but that's kind of the thing. You don't have to purchase these. As long as Ubisoft does it properly and doesn't make it like a global announcement, I don't know why they would do that. But if you want to have that tactical FPS, you don't want to change anything about the game, you like the announcer that we have right now, well then I would hope that they would allow you to have said announcer for as long as you play the game. But if you want to add a bit more flair, you want to add in that kind of variety, then having this as a microtransaction option could be a really cool addition into the game. The next question comes from Jaden, and it is, what do you think if they added in Rainbow Six to make it more to where the barrel of your weapon actually hit where it was aiming instead of your reticle? Main reason being to basically remove pixel peeking from spots that aren't destructible and giving less an advantage to the peaks. That would be a really dramatic change to the game. If you're not aware of what Jaden is referring to, I'm sure you guys have noticed where someone is hunkered down, they're defending a spot, and all you can see is their forehead, and only their forehead. You don't see any of their weapon, no barrel, no nothing. All you see is their forehead, because that's where the shots come out of. They don't come out of the barrel itself, they come out of that one spot on the top of your head. And so the result of this is that not only is this not realistic whatsoever, but it also gives a pretty big advantage to the person who is taking advantage of those pixel peaks. And so by changing it to where the rounds only come out of the barrel, those pixel peaks would no longer be viable. You would need to expose a lot more of your body, enough of your body so that the barrel is exposed to be able to retaliate. I don't know if that is something that the large majority of the player base would be on board with. This is kind of the way that the game has evolved over the years. It's just kind of a part of Rainbow Six Siege at this point. Some people would argue for the better, some people would say for the worst. But by changing it this dramatically, it's gonna rustle some feathers. This is actually what happened in, I believe, Battlefield 4. Maybe they made the change into Battlefield 1, but it was a pretty severe adjustment. You would be on a wall, you would be aiming at someone, you would pull the trigger, and your shots would hit the wall directly in front of you. Even though you're staring right at the enemy, even though you got your head up there, because the barrel is below the wall, you're pretty much out of luck. In a game like Rainbow Six Siege, where that can mean the difference between you winning and losing, I mean, firefights end in a split seconds, to lose because of that would be pretty annoying. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't think the community could overcome this challenge, but it would be a very steep learning curve. Right now, if you see someone, you know that there isn't going to be any obstacles, and as soon as you shoot, you should be able to take them down. With this new system, you're gonna have to have a completely different spatial awareness of where your character is situated. It's gonna add on to that already crazy amount of learning that new players have to have when they jump into Siege. And so all in all, while I know that some people might be intrigued by this concept because they really don't like the whole pixel peak dynamic, it's just not something that they want in a first-person shooter that would solve it, but it also would cause a lot of problems and may not be something that the vast majority of the community would want. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you want Ubisoft to change the whole pixel peak dynamic and make it more realistic? Is that not something that you want to see? Let me know down below in the comment section. As always, if you would like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment down below or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.